In this tutorial, we're going to see how to use Thunkable to create a simple app that changes the color of the screen. So once you've logged into Thunkable and created an account, click on Create New App. You click Create New App, you need to give the app a name. And I'm going to call this Color Change 1. Click Create. And now I'm on the Thunkable screen. So this screen lets us set up an app by dragging and dropping components onto it. For this app, we're just going to have one button, and what that button is going to do is change the screen color. So I'm going to drag the button over here, and now I've got a button in the middle of the screen. What I want to do then is when that button gets clicked, I want the screen color to change to something. So I'm going to go over to blocks and I'm going to click on button. And blocks are how you tell the app how to exhibit a behavior. So I want something to happen when my button is clicked. And what I want to have happen is I want the screen's background color to change. So I drag the block for the screen to set its background color. Black, I don't really want it to be black. I think I'd really prefer red. So I want my screen to turn red when my button is clicked. Once you have set up your blocks, you can go into the Thunkable app on your phone. And when you're in the Thunkable app, you should be able to see the apps that you have created. And you can go into the app then and try it out and see how it works. So I've opened it in the Thunkable app. I've clicked on button and it turns red. Very cool. So the next thing we're going to want to do is figure out how can we change it to different colors. So right now I can only make it red. And also I want my buttons to say something about what they're going to do. So I'm going to call this button, in fact, the red button. Now what I'll do is I'll drag another button on here, and I'm going to call this button blue. So what I've done is I've changed the text so that the user has some idea of what the button is going to do when it's clicked. Now, within the blocks, that text that names the button doesn't really have any effect. So let's say, I want within the blocks the name of the button to be something that makes sense, So what I can do is come over here. So button 2 is the blue button. I'm going to rename it to be blue button. And now when I come over to the blocks, I can create a block for blue button. Of course, button 1 is still sitting there, and we really ought to rename that to be red button. So I'm going to come back here and rename that button to be red button. So notice when I added it, the blue button landed on top of the red button. Let's say I want them in another order. What we have up here is a little display area that shows how the components are laid out. So if I want them laid out in a different way, I just change their order here. So red button now comes first and it lands on top. So coming back to the blocks, when the red button is clicked, we want screen 1's background color to be red. When blue button is clicked, let's have screen 1's background color become blue. So let's find a nice, pretty shade of blue in here somewhere. That looks pretty good. All right, and so now I'm ready to test my app. And so I go to my device, and when I click on my blue button, my background goes blue, and when I click on red, it goes red, and I can keep clicking on them back and forth all that I want. And now my app is like flashing and such. And if you're following along, you should find that your app is doing the same thing. There's no limit to the number of these that in principle we might add. So let's say I want a yellow button. So I'm going to change the text to be yellow. And I'm going to go up here and I'm going to call it the yellow button. And then I'll come on over to blocks, click on yellow button, and when yellow button is clicked, I want my screen's background color to become yellow. And so I'm going to click on yellow here. And now on my phone, I can click on the yellow button and the background's red, yellow, then red, then blue, and I can just jump around between them. Let's go back to the design for a moment. You know, there's a different way to think about what these buttons look like, right? So right now I've got text saying the name of the color, but I could add some additional cues, right? So let's say, for instance, I want the background color of my red button to actually be red. Well, I can do that. And then let's, instead of having a blue text color, I'm going to just go with like a white text color. I think that'll show up really nicely on the red. Then for my blue, you know, again, I would like kind of a bluish background color. Like that. And then, so that's the background. For my text color, you know, I'm going to want that to be white. Because that'll show up nicely on the blue. Now for my yellow button, I want a yellow background color. And for the text, I'm actually going to go with black because I think that shows really nicely on a yellow background. So now in my app, I can pull up my phone and I click on yellow and the background goes yellow, red it goes red, blue it goes blue, and then the button itself is providing an additional cue so that we can see what it is supposed to look like. So at this point, you've seen how to create a simple app with a button that can change colors. And don't push the buttons too fast because you might, I don't know, get some kind of a headache by how quickly the colors are changing on you. Hope you had fun with it, and look forward to chatting